I'm Paul. We're going to talk about study skills, particularly for people with learning differences or executive function challenges. You should know that the stuff that we'll see today is different than any stuff anyone else has seen. So I like to amuse myself by never doing the same thing twice. So this stuff that you're seeing is no one else has seen this before. So here we are, right? Okay. So I will email you the slides afterwards if you want. You also are perhaps aware that these talks are available on video on the lab school website. I have watched past talks that they've done, okay? So it's like super valuable resource and really hard to find this kind of stuff. So poke around the lab school lecture series website and watch some of the old stuff. It's good, all right? Let's see, so if you would like me to email you the slides and or you would like to have monthly study skills tips sent to you by email, never more than once per month, I would invite you to put your name and email and tell me what grade your kids are in here if you would like that, yeah? So I'll pass this around, here you go. And, okay, so I am in my 6th year in DC teaching people how to get better grades in less time. This is my sister. My sister is in LA. She teaches people in LA how to get better grades in less time. Barry the study dog is the muse. Okay, so if you, I don't see anyone I know here, but if you have been reading my stuff for the last several years, you'll see that Barry provides the inspiration for the captions that accompany the study skills articles. Okay, so that's really fun. You can't get enough of Barry the study dog. All right. So here are some things. I've been doing lots of talks the last couple years all over the area, and these are some things that people always want to know. So maybe you, or if you're wondering some of these things, then you're in the right place because everyone in this part of the world always wants to know these things. So what are these things? My background, someone asked me already here today, the first question I got was, how did you get into this racket? And I said, by accident, same as everybody. So I grew up at a university at UC Santa Barbara, where my father has worked 40 years. And I worked there 20 years off and on, beginning in 8th grade. For real, right? Started working there in 8th grade. My first job was doing statistics at college basketball games. We have any basketball people here? So this is, no, okay, so it doesn't matter there. I worked there 20 years and I had a million jobs. And the last job I had was teaching study skills at the university. And they're like, you're hired. You're teaching study skills. I was like, what's that? They're like, you know, motivation, time management, reading, note-taking, tests, papers. And I thought, that's super fun. Those are all the things that I'm best at. This is going to be so fun. So I started doing it at the university for a few years. And then my wife made us move to DC from Santa Barbara, mind you. Made us move from Santa Barbara to DC for grad school in public policy. Okay, the most exciting thing. So this is our 6th year here, and it's so fun. We're never leaving. So that's how I ended up here. Okay, so everyone always wonders, well, study skills are great, but what about my kid who has this, that, and the other going on in their brain? And I always say, well, then your kid needs study skills even more than everyone else, right? So anything that works is gonna work for anybody. And study skills works, as we'll see. And if the people in your charge have ADHD or dyslexia or dysgraphia or slow processing speed or dyscalculia or any number of things, then really, really, really you want to hammer on study skills with them until it's like second nature, and then they'll get the benefits, right? So we're going to see how to do that. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to help somebody with study skills. Yeah? Then we'll talk about, like, so maybe who does any of you have a job where You have to learn stuff? Some people have jobs like that. You have a job like that? Yeah? Any other people? Some people? Okay. So then we'll talk a little bit about how to learn stuff according to science, not according to me. And you'll see that a lot of this stuff looks a lot like the things you have to do for them to let you go to your job tomorrow, right? So it's super handy, and it's just endless value forever and ever. You really only have to learn it once, and then you just enjoy the benefits of better grades in less time or better work in less time. I mean, can you think of anything you'd rather do in the workday than your most boring task? If you can, you're a great candidate for study skills. So here we go. And of course, you're all here to know how can this help students. So we'll go through like blow by blow. This is what you do if you want to learn more in school. Now, yeah? All right. So you have a question or a comment. Either if it's urgent, shout it out. If it's not, write it down, and we'll talk about everything like that at the end. Either one, right? Okay. So, so who am I? What's going on? I wrote a fun book, okay? That's one thing you should know about me. I wrote a fun book. It's back there. It's called This Book Will Not Be on the Test. Does anyone know Daniel Pink? Yeah? He's a local, right? So he's a super generous supporter of mine. The book is really about how to get your money's worth in school. Having grown up at a college, it was super important to me to kind of wring every drop of value out of being in college. And that's what I'm trying to help people do with the book. Not only in terms of like your mindset when you show up, but what study skills you need in order to get your money's worth. So there's that. All right, what else? So I wrote that fun book, but mostly I'm teaching people study skills one-on-one at rush hour and on the weekends. So that's how I spend my time. That's me, right? So because study skills help only works if it happens, any supplemental academic help is only going to work if you do it between after school and dinner or on the weekends when the kids' brains are fresh and they're well rested and everything. Nothing is ever going to work after dinner, okay? As you know. As you know. Yeah, what am I telling you for, right? Okay. Finally, last thing, and this is super important, okay? I didn't make this stuff up, right? I just found it and thought it was cool, and I'm here to make it fun and convincing. But I did not make this stuff up. Study skills is as old as school, right? So, like, anyone read those books about memory and how to memorize massive amounts of stuff? Okay, the examples come from 2,000 years ago where people figured out how to memorize a bunch of stuff, right? So, I didn't make this stuff up. This guy is the creator of the funnest, I know it's not a word, the funnest study skills videos on the internet. They're short, they're small. There's like 5 or 6 of them, and they're 5 minutes each or something. Okay, from Samford University. Anyone go to Samford? Okay, all right, okay, right. Stephen Chu. So super fun study skills videos, 5 or 6 of them. Watch those, they're fun. They're specific to college. And so I find people, when people want to know like, what the heck do you do? I say, oh, watch these videos. I teach people how to do that stuff. So there you go. Oh, it works. All right. So how does study skills help people with learning differences or executive function challenges? So first of all, so I say all my stuff, my materials say better grades in less time. But obviously grades aren't the point. Okay, grades are stupid, arbitrary, and inconsistent. And even worse than grades is grading. Okay, teachers, right? Grading, terrible, right? So we're going for learning here. Really, I'm teaching people how to learn, right? Has anyone ever in your school lives, raise your hand if you ever got an A in a class in which you did not master the material? So that's everyone who took French in high school. Raise your hand, right? Yeah, okay. So grades are bogus. Okay, forget about grades. We're going for learning here. So when you learn how to learn, you always get better grades unless you have an extremely leaky backpack, which some of your students have, I'm sure, right? So we're going for learning, forget about the grades, right? If you aim for grades, if you obsess over grades, you're only ever going to learn as much as your teacher requires for you to get a 93, okay? And that's not enough to fend for yourself in the cruel world when you have to pay rent, right? So we're going for learning. So learning is like, so there's F, there's A, and then way down here is learning. Okay, we're going for learning. So if you aim for learning, if you aim to master the stuff, make sure you super duper know it, and you totally mess up and you end up over here, you still get an A++, right? So that's handy. But really we're going for learning because that's what you're going to pay your rent with, is the skills that you learned in school. All right. So the funnest thing is that word again. I keep saying that. One thing I really like about study skills is that they are directly relatable to job skills and life skills. Okay, so paying attention in lecture and capturing the important parts is the same thing as going to an important meeting. You have to prepare a little bit, except no one prepares before they go to lecture, but they should, right? You prepare for a meeting. Reading dense, old stuff that wasn't written by your best friend is a lot like the kind of work my wife has to do at GAO, where they, oh yeah, if you know what GAO is, you're laughing. Okay, you look over my wife's shoulder, it's the boringest stuff you've ever seen. Okay, it's just like every sentence needs a citation. It's actually every word, but you wouldn't believe me if I told you that, right? It's every, okay, so, oh my gosh, so study skills, it's the same thing as job skills, okay? It's the same thing as life skills. That's why when I work with college students and we talk about planning out your academic semester, we put pay rent on there, right? Because it's the same stuff, you just need practice. Okay. Finally, how do study skills help you? Well, the whole point of getting better grades in less time is that then you have more time to do cool stuff. So the students that you are responsible for, what are some things that they would like to have more time for? What are some things that your students would rather be doing than homework? Video games, Fortnite specifically. What else? Sports, hanging out with friends, YouTube, The Mandalorian maybe, music, practicing piano. Surely all your students are dying to practice more piano. Church or similar, lessons of something, making stuff, blowing stuff up that you've made. It's endless. Reading for fun, hopefully, right? There's so many things people would rather be doing. So that's kind of a really motivating idea there that, whoa, if I learned this stuff to my satisfaction and got good enough grades that my parents were off my back, then I would totally have time to do more fun stuff. I mean, all but the least inspired kids respond to that, right? So that's a pretty fun way to put it. Okay, so now let's consider how to actually learn stuff, right, according to science. What the science of learning says about how to learn things more efficiently. Remember, I didn't make this stuff up. In fact, this thing we're going to look at, I got it from the NPR learning quiz. Okay, it's a really short quiz. Okay, it came out, I guess, a few years ago now. But it's a nice, tidy summary of the recent research on the science of learning that people like our man Stephen Chu are doing, right? Okay, so let's see some of these. So you'll see that in the interest of like not starting arguments, I've already put in green the right answer. Okay, so you know that I didn't write this thing. Okay, I'm just telling you what the answers are. Don't argue with me about it, right? Just kidding. I invite you to argue. So, you know, intelligence and $1 will get you a Coke, right? Being really smart and $1 will get you a Coke, okay? So what good is it to be really smart? None, if you don't have the study skills to actually get the work turned in, right? If you have a leaky backpack, it doesn't matter how smart you are, right? So everybody can get smarter or dumber depending on how they spend their time, right? And kids are getting smarter like every day till about 25. And then they start to get dumber unless they do things to stay smart, right? So like if you're worried about your kids, wait 20 minutes, right? They'll be smarter. Wait till tomorrow, right? I've had students where we've worked together for years, and I've thought, well, I don't know if you're doing what I'm telling you to do, but you sure are 3 years older now. So you got that going for you, right? Learning from a text. School boils down to show up and do the reading, right? That's like school stuff happens in school, and then they give you a bunch of stuff to read, right? And if maybe you watch it on a video instead of reading it, fine, whatever. But it's basically, show up, do the reading. Okay, so the reading is this big, onerous pile of stuff, especially if you go to a school where they pride themselves on making you read 1,000,000 books that are 500 years old and 1,000 pages and smell musty, right? So there's schools like that. So highlighter, okay, I hate highlighters. Highlighters are okay at the beautifying of the study guide stage. Okay, after you've made a great study guide for each class, which we'll show you how to do, if you want to make it pretty, bust out the highlighters. Avoid highlighters until then. They're worse than useless. Because you highlight something and you're like, woo, it's pink, okay? And then 2 days later, you didn't put any notes next to the highlighting, so you don't remember what you highlighted. So you have to read it again. You're like, what is this? Read it again. You're like, that's not important. And you have a bright pink reminder of how dumb you were when you did that reading, right? That's no fun. That doesn't feel good. So if underlining, I don't have a big problem with underlining, but do it in pencil, so if you figure out you're wrong, it's not there forever. Right? It's not distracting you. But anything, this whole thing of connecting, like explain the text to yourself. Okay, so what does that even mean? Like, to me, this means the biggest value of this for anybody is that it's insurance against spacing out. Right? Have you ever spaced out when you're reading something? They say, read to page 20. You're like, woo, I'm doing it. 16, 17, 18. And then came Alice. You're like, what, Alice? Who's Alice? Alice came in page 4. You're like, oh, man. And you have to go back to page 4, right? So checking in with yourself about what is happening is it's like the thing the mountain climbers do where they bang something into the mountain so if they fall, they don't fall all the way to the bottom, right? So you got to check with yourself as often as you don't want to have to read that stuff again. So for me, that's maybe like every page or something. Okay, this is what's going on. All right. Now, if you're going to all that trouble, write down what's going on so that you don't have to read it again. Okay, right? So anything you mark, however you mark it, you ought to be writing something over here about why you marked that thing. So that you don't have to read it again. So that when you write a tidy summary that you sell to your friend who didn't come to school today, it's simple because you already have the ideas already sitting there, right? Now, since we're talking about this and I'm so excited about it, here is my favorite way of marking things. So underlining, fine, but that's a lot of work. That's like all the way across the page. Okay. So if it's important, like say this line B, instead of underlining this whole thing, I'm going to come over here and I make one line. And one line here means what lives over here is important. Now, if it's super important, then I'm going to make 2 lines. Mind you, I'm doing this with the humble pencil. So I'm not fumbling over 1,000,000 highlighters. And now I have 2 levels of importance, important and super important. But what if I know I'm going to have to write an essay on this book in 3 weeks, like I have to do with every book, and I'm going to have to put quotes in it, like I have to do with every essay, and I find a good quote here, Then I put 2 lines and a star. And the star means there's a great quote living here. Type it in your Google Doc when you're done with this reading assignment, so that when they assign the future essay, your essay will be half written, and you just have to string together these fun quotes that you care about. Right? Okay. See how fun study skills? All right. So, yeah, we already talked about this one. Not useful unless you write stuff and then review it and then condense that in a study guide. Yeah, not super practical. Handy if it's confusing, but not super practical. Everyone thinks, I'll record the lecture and listen to it again. Okay, how many times have you actually listened to the lecture again? I mean, almost nobody actually does that. Okay, so informal quiz. What is that? No one has ever said that word before, informal quiz. This is the problem with all this learning stuff, is it's not in plain English and no one knows what any of it means. Informal quiz, the heck is that? Who cares, right? An informal quiz is quizzing yourself. Quizzing yourself is not just reading the thing 20 times, not beating yourself over the head with the book, not sleeping with it under your pillow. Quizzing yourself is you put the important stuff like this, and you read the prompt, and you cover up the answer, and you see if you know it. That's quizzing yourself, or having someone quiz you, if you can find someone to do that. But that gets old. Right? Quizzing people. I hate quizzing people, right? I'd much rather show them how to quiz themselves, right? Who's ever had to quiz a kid on something that they just hated even in 9th grade, and now you have to quiz your kid on it? No, get out of that business. You want the kid to quiz themselves. But to do that, they have to have a great collection of information, and then you have to teach them, okay, no peeking, see if you know it. And if you don't know it, then you're not going to get the grade you want, right? So the quizzing yourself is more insurance. It's to figure out if you know the stuff well enough to your personal or parental standards, right? And if you don't know it, you want to discover that Saturday morning and not the Monday morning of the test, right? Okay, so what else? Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is why I told you. Okay, this is why I put this ahead of time, so don't fight with me about this. Learning styles are a piece of semantic myth. Okay, there's no such thing as learning styles. There's only preferences, right? Just because I like eating pizza with a knife and fork doesn't mean I can't eat it with my bare hands. Just means I prefer eating pizza with a knife and fork. Yeah? So everybody would benefit from information being presented in multiple ways. There is nobody who wouldn't also enjoy a picture along with their text. Right? This, to me, this is really what it's all about here. This is why we're here. If you remember one thing, it ought to be this. And spaced out over time, again, what the heck does that mean? That's not plain English. Okay, plain English is this. Review every class, every weekend, pick out the good stuff, write it in a study guide. Sell it to your dumbest cousin. Can everyone picture their dumbest cousin? This is a fun thing I like to do, right? Every once in a while, I do that with a student, and they're like, wait, I'm the dumbest cousin. They say that, right? I'm like, no, I don't believe that. Come on, right? But so it's risky. Okay, so review everything every week. That's what that means. So if you have a test, how much material does a test cover? 2 or 3 weeks? Okay, so and how much do people study for a test? I don't know. How many minutes or hours? Any number, it doesn't matter. 1 hour, great. So 1 hour for a test covering 3 weeks of material. What this is saying is that hour would have been better spent if you reviewed everything after week 1 for 20 minutes, and then reviewed everything after week 2 for 20 minutes, and then reviewed everything the night before the test for 20 minutes. There's your 60 minutes, and now you've been through everything 3 times with opportunity to forget it a little bit, and then you have to struggle to remember it again. That's learning. That's the only way to learn. Quiz yourself regularly, as often as seems prudent, but not so often that the quiz is too easy, right? If I tell you, my favorite word in Spanish is examen, and my second favorite word is exámenes, and I ask you that an hour from now, it's going to be too easy. You're still going to remember, right? I ask you 6 months from now, you have to struggle, and then if you remember it then, you'll never forget it. So, but you can't go 6 months in school. In school, I think it's got to be once a week. A week is a million years when you're a kid, right? A week, you ask a kid, what's today? What's today? Wednesday? Right? Go home and ask your kid what they did in second period on, yesterday. See how far you get, right? If you don't review everything every week and forget about it, it's long gone, right? You got to review everything every week if you actually want to learn stuff. But even if you don't want to learn stuff and you just want good grades, review every week anyway, right? But if you're reviewing is the only way to learn stuff, right? Okay, so was that it? This thing, left brain, right brain, that's bogus too. It's right up there with learning styles. Now these things, interestingly, there's a whole years and years and years where people were taught this concept, right? But I wasn't paying attention to this stuff in those years. So I was watching sports and riding the bus in South America. I was not paying attention to this stuff. So the first time I ever heard the word learning styles was in the New York Times article from 12 years ago now saying learning styles are bogus. I'm like, oh, what are learning styles? They're like, doesn't matter, it's bogus. I'm like, okay, right? So same with this, right? A lot of people were talking about this for a long time. Okay, it has nothing to do with learning. All right, so now we're going to talk about how students can actually do school better. Okay, so this stuff we're going to do. This is a miniature version of the thing that usually takes me 6 hours to teach somebody, whether they're a fifth grader or a doctoral student, 6 hours. So this is the whirlwind version. But remember, I can send you all this stuff and everything you're going to need. There's clear directions to where you can get it, and it'll totally work if you do it. Okay, so in the simplest terms, you shouldn't do any schoolwork before thinking about whether you really have to. And if you decide you really have to, then try to find excuses to hate it less. And then once you've done that, go do the stuff. But then most importantly, after you do the stuff, figure out a way for it to be less painful next time. So keep track of how it went. Maybe you got lucky and it went great. Well, sweet, let me wear these socks forever and ever and ever, right? Maybe it went terribly and you look around and you have 50 distractions going and the cat is standing on your homework. Well, okay, maybe work in a different room next time, right? So the evaluating of how the heck it went, which nobody ever does, unless they something really bad happens to them, then maybe, right? That's kind of the secret. Figure out how to do things a tiny bit better every week, right? So we'll show you how to do that. We have a way to do that anybody can manage. Okay, so you see how to do some of this stuff. All right, so you got to plan your work before you do it, okay? Any 80s people in here? I'm 80s. Any 80s people? Leg warmers? Yeah? Aren't they fun? Right? There's Barry the study dog. He is pumped to do the work he has to do, okay? He's ready to do it, okay? He's planned it out. Figure out what you want to do, why the heck you want to do it, and then, okay, so once you're resigned, okay, I got to do this stuff, all right. When are you going to do it? Well, that is totally up to you. That's the fun part, right? You want to do it at the least painful time. That's a kind of a low bar, but that's a pretty simple rule. Do everything at the least painful time, okay? So, whose kid had to watch that football game Monday night? Did anyone have kids? I had to watch that football game, right? So I have to watch this football game for 3.5 hours on Monday night. So what else do I have to do? Well, I don't want to do it Monday night, so I'm going to have to put it at some other time that wouldn't cause me pain, right? Now, when is that stuff? We'll talk about that. So this is one super important idea, review everything every weekend. The other super important idea, do stuff at smart times. Right? We all do this in our adult lives to somewhat, right? When do you drink coffee if you drink coffee? Do you drink coffee at 2 a.m.? No, that'd be dumb, right? We do stuff like this. We just don't notice that we're doing stuff. So whatever any kid is into, the way to be good at that thing that they're into is exactly the same way to be good at school. You just got to help them notice that and give them 50 comparisons that convinces them of that fact, and then pretty soon after, school becomes more fun. All right, so how are we going to do this? Okay, so we're talking about here, in detail here, the best time to do everything, okay? So you need one of these. And I'm going to tell you where to get these. Don't worry about it. I'll send you the slides. You can print these on my website. We'll see. Okay, so this is a weekly schedule, and it has, hopefully, covers all the waking hours. So we got 6 a.m. down to midnight here. Crucial features of this laughably simple document are that the week starts on Monday and ends with the weekend. Yeah? Okay, so any calendar that starts on Sunday is the devil, throw it out. That's the worst thing in the world you could do to a kid, because weekends are at the end of the week and they're 2 days long. And the calendar that starts on Sunday distorts that simple fact, and that ruins everybody's homework review plans, right? So you need this calendar. Okay, luckily I made one for you. All right, so here's how you do this. You make a list of everything in your life. You could do this. I would suggest that you do this once for yourself, the grown-up, and once with your kid in mind. And then have your kid do one too, and you compare them. And then you'll be like, wait a minute, you don't do 4 hours a week of chores, right? Okay, so you list everything in your life that takes more than 15 minutes. Okay, what's that? Okay, so ready? This is going to stress you out. Okay, if you're a kid, 11th grader. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm stressed out. Getting ready for school. Transportation. School. Transportation. Sports, practice, lessons, tutoring, therapy, breakfast, lunch, dinner, test prep, practice of other things, reading for fun, playing video games, YouTube, playing on your phone, chores, Snapchat, church or similar, volunteering. And sleep. We forgot sleep. Okay, and what else did we forget? Homework. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff. Okay, so then you list all the things, and then you start marking them where they go, okay, on here. And you start with sleep. Okay, you start with sleep. I'm not the sleep guy, but I've been paying attention to the sleep guy, Matthew Walker. You know, he's been talking about this. Okay, you know what happens if you don't sleep 8 hours a night? Oh my gosh. Okay, this is fun. So for years now, I've been telling students, and teenagers, you want to get a teenager to sleep more? You remind them that if you don't sleep enough, you get dumb and you get ugly. Fixed. You're welcome. But it's actually much worse than that. If you don't sleep 8 hours a night, you are putting yourself at greater risk of cancer and Alzheimer's and infertility. Dumb, ugly, cancer, Alzheimer's, infertility. If you don't sleep 8 hours a night. But you're thinking, but wait, I don't get 8 hours of sleep and I'm the man. Well, maybe you're one of the 1 in 4 million people who enjoys this mutation in their sleep gene. If you believe you're 1 in 4 million, then bully for you. Otherwise, you're lying to yourself, but that's okay. We all lie to ourselves. Everyone's delusional. We all lie to ourselves. Study skills are to help you police your delusions. That's why you review everything on the weekends. All right? Okay, so when you fill all this thing out, you mark homework last, and you're going to find that really what the kid is going to find is that unless your kid is one of these super duper schmooper over-programmed kids who goes to the most demanding of schools where they make you do 14 or more hours a week of homework, then your kid is going to discover, wait, I totally have way more time than I thought I did. And you're like, see, you do have time for 4 hours a week of chores, right? So you're going to schedule the homework. You're going to schedule the homework where it makes sense, okay? We already said after dinner is terrible. Nothing's going to work after dinner. But wait, my kid has practice and they don't get home until dinner. Okay, well, if they're practicing, then maybe they're tough enough to handle it, but you should know that it's always going to be 100 times harder doing it after dinner. Yeah? Now, if you're wondering how much homework is enough, I'll tell you anything more than 14 hours a week is too much. So that's my conclusion. After teaching my study skills system to kids from 120-something schools, every kid thinks their kid goes to a special school, right? Like, okay, school is school. 120 schools I've seen kids from. I don't think you can have a happy, healthy life as a high schooler on more than 14 hours a week of homework. 14 hours a week to me if I had to do 14 hours, I'd do 2 hours before dinner, Monday through Thursday, and then 2 hours maybe 10 to noon or noon to 2, or depending on when I get up, Saturday and Sunday. And that'd be, how many? 12, right? And then if I had to do 2 more, I guess I'd probably do it before dinner on Sunday. So 14 hours. So figure out how much homework your kid has. If they have more than 14 hours, they're doing it wrong. You don't need to have more than 14 hours. I deal with all sorts of kids. Every learning diagnosis, every school. I don't think you can do more than that. It's not necessary. You're doing it wrong if you have more than that. So any kid who's stressed out because they have too much homework, study skills, cured. All right. So this is where you figure out when you're going to do your homework. This is where you figure out when you're going to do all the fun stuff. So this is a different calendar, but it also ends with the weekend. Okay? So this calendar is approximately exactly the right size for 1/4 of an academic year. A quarter at university has 11 weeks. A quarter in schools has 8 or 9. So you cross off everything you don't need. And here you keep track of the big things, the bigger deal things. So tests, quizzes, papers, projects, performances, events, trips, vacations, video game releases, sports games, home or away, and rent if you're a college student. And chiefly, over here, you write review in huge letters. You write review here, and Saturday and Sunday, you list which classes you're going to review which day. And then you mark it off when you did it. Or you say sorry self when you didn't, right? If you do that, tell me, let's pretend we're in college and we have finals in week 11, and we somehow manage to review every class for 30 to 60 minutes every weekend. We keep track of that, And we get to the week before finals, and we see, whoa, I totally reviewed this class every single weekend. Why don't I just go to the movies? What could I possibly have to do before finals if I have reviewed this class 10 times already, once a week leading up to finals? My troubles are over, right? So this is the secret. Review everything every weekend, pick out the good stuff, write it in a study guide. Use it to quiz yourself. That's it. That's what I'm here to yell at you about. All right, this doesn't show up correctly, but it's a to-do list, and it has 4 columns. 4 columns. Every working adult who wants to do things more efficiently should do this. If you have a job where you don't have opportunity to do things better, then it doesn't matter, just do the stuff. But if you can do things better and you want things to take less time, this is the answer to your problems. This to-do list says stuff I have to do, as in assignments I should do today, as in things I want to get done during my workday, as in things I want to get done this weekend before my wife gets home, that kind of thing. How long I think it'll take, and the think is in italics because we know you're going to be wrong about that. And then once you make a list of everything you have to do and how long you think it's going to take, only then are you ready to figure out when the best time to do this thing is. Because you have to see everything you have to do and how long it's all going to take, and then you're going to start sorting it out so that it goes pleasantly. Okay? So then you're going to assign yourself a day and time to do this thing. Right? So we'll talk about that in a second. After you have it done, you fill out the all-powerful column 4 that says how long it actually took and why. Did a miracle happen? Did you get it done in half the time? Figure out how and replicate those conditions. Did it take way longer? Okay, don't do it that way next time, right? Now, in terms of when you should do certain things, let's go back to the homework consideration here. What do you know? Who read that book by Daniel Pink called When? Anyone read that book? So it's about when to do stuff. And the short version is do it like earlier in your day. Earlier in your day, right? Everyone is an idiot in the afternoon. After dinner, you can be productive, but it should be more like creative type stuff and less on like stuff that has right and wrong answers. So basically, to me, this means you get home from school, you take as many minutes as you need to chill and eat a snack and use the bathroom, not to exceed 45, and then you do the hardest homework first, which no kid does. You do the hardest homework first, and then you do the easier stuff, and then when you're done, then you do the fun stuff, not the other way around. You'll have more time to do fun stuff if the hardest work takes you less time than it would have. And the only way for it to do that is to like pound a bunch of protein when you get on the bus. And then you get home and you chill for a little bit and get your wits back, and then you start the work, right? I'm a big fan of sending a kid to school with a backpack full of protein so that they don't accidentally fritter away an hour looking for a snack when they get home and then get sucked into Fortnite, right? So hardest homework first. Now, most kids will tell you like their brain's working when they get to school in the morning, or maybe it takes them an hour or two. Okay, fine. So like kids are smart around here. Everyone is an idiot after dinner. Just find a way to get the work done before dinner. If that's structurally impossible in your household, then maybe you'd want to have a protein-filled snack and then do 40 minutes of work and push dinner back a little bit just so you didn't have to do everything after dinner? Maybe. I don't know. It's really household specific, right? But basically we're trying to lighten the homework load and not have so many after dinner blow-ups in the house, right? Now, weekend mornings are the best time to learn. Every kid is at their absolute smartest an hour after they wake up on the weekend. They're well rested, they got nothing to worry about, they got nowhere to be, okay? That's why when I work with students who are like in middle school or high school, Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m., noon, and 2, those are the times that fill up first, right? I'm working all weekend, all school year long. My wife hates it, she'll tell you. But that's when they get the best results, because that's when the kids' brains are working, right? Nothing's going to work after dinner. I won't go to someone's house after dinner. It would never work, right? So in terms of when you assign yourself things, you want to assign the review to the weekend when you're smartest, because that's the most important work. The weeknights are mostly for getting stuff done that you have to hand in soonish, right? And well, anyway, that's enough about that. All right, so you're going to figure out how to do things better. Okay, now, I'll warn you, like, almost no one does this. Okay, but it's there. It's there. And it's not my fault if they don't do it. It's there, right? Oh, the only people who do this are the people who really are deeply trying to do things better. Right? Like, I mean, and I'll tell you, like, in my kind of, I do this like every 6 months to a year. I think about how I can save time on certain stuff. I don't do this like every day, right? Like, because most things, okay, I'm going teach somebody, it takes an hour. What can I do about that, right? Okay, not much. But the things that I get sick of doing, and I'm like, this is taking painfully long for the umpteenth time, that's the stuff where I'll think hard about why it's taking that long and what I can do better. Okay, so now let's talk about, like, when the heck are you going to do this stuff, okay? So we figured out when. Now what's that going to look like? This, if you can see this, this is a joke. This book is On Writing the College Application Essay. That's what it's called. On Writing the College Application Essay. Fantastic book. And it's on Barry the Study Dog. Right? Isn't he a good study dog? Look at him. He's got a book on him. Okay, so when it comes to reading, don't read anything until you know why you should read it, right? Don't read any book until you know why you should read it. Okay, like, why do they make you read this book? Well, Google it, right? Why do they make everyone read To Kill a Mockingbird? You know that one? Who knows this story, the real story? You know this real story? Why do they make you read that? Okay, we all read it 20 times, right? Why does everyone have to read that book? Because it was published in 1961. Who cares? Well, 1961 was the first year that publishers began putting out paperback books that weren't trash. This was the first mass market paperback book that wasn't pulp fiction. Right place, right time. That's why everyone has to read it. Right? There you go. So how do I know that? Because I was working with a 9th grader a month ago, and he's like, we have to read To Kill a Mockingbird. I was like, oh, why do you think they make you read that? Oh, I don't know, it's about racism or whatever. I'm like, no, Google it. You Google it, and we found this video. This is a video. Why do they make you read this? Here's the story, right? And I just told you. So Google every book before you read it. I have a list a mile long of tweets that I see from something called Open Culture. You know what that is? Whatever. It's what it sounds like. It's free culture stuff. And I swear every 2 days there is a new video that's 4 minutes long. Why we should read Shakespeare. Why you should read Flannery O'Connor. Why do they make you read To Kill a Mockingbird, right? It's all been figured out before. Watch the freaking video for 4 minutes before you read the book. Okay? Same way, figure out what you're going to talk about in class before you go so that you are well prepared to learn it. Right? So, just like in the movies, right? Okay? If I say to you, go see this movie, what are you going to ask me? Why? I'm going to say, I'm not going to tell you. Just go pay the $15. What are you going to say? No. Okay, well, what's it cost to be in class in college? It costs more than the movies, right? I don't want to bum you out and tell you how much more, but it costs more than the movies. Okay, so you have to spend a little bit of time previewing the next day's classes. And by a little bit, I mean like, if you're in high school, like 2 minutes. 2 minutes per class. You don't have 10 minutes per class on top of what you're already doing. That's oppressive. But you have 2 minutes. Spend 2 minutes peeking at what the heck you're going to do tomorrow in each class, so that when you get there, it's not a surprise, and you have a question and a comment, and you're ready to get something out of it, and you're not just sitting there like a learning hostage, hoping that your teacher has the energy to teach you something that day, right? That's not a fair expectation to put on a teacher. Their jobs are too hard, right? Okay, so you want to help people preview the stuff, the books, the lecture, whatever. All right, and then you got to write a teeny tiny summary of every hour of lecture. Teeny tiny meaning like 30 seconds. You got to write a teeny tiny summary of every reading assignment. So they say read these 5 pages, fine, but that should end with like 2 or 3 or 4 bullet points of 2 or 3 or 4 words each, which is going to facilitate your weekly review later. Yeah? Okay. Yeah, so when you do that, when you're doing your weekly review of your brilliant summaries and the stuff that was dictated to you in class, and perhaps any slides that your teacher put up that you printed out so that you didn't have to sit there like an idiot copying things off a screen, right? So you print out the slides, you stack up everything in chronological order with your reading summaries, any notes you took in class, you flip through it, you find the good stuff, and you start writing it over here in a study guide, okay? You do that a couple weeks, and then pretty soon you are like predicting what's going to be on the test, right? How do you know what's going to be on the test? Well, as any teacher in the room will tell you, it's the stuff they said 500 times, or the stuff they did in 3 or 4 ways, or the stuff they did really deeply for 1 day, or perhaps the stuff that's on the syllabus, right? So like, that's how you know what's going to be on the test. It's all predictable. There is no teacher trying to give a tricky test anymore, right? That doesn't exist in this country. What would happen if a teacher gave an intentionally tricky test and 30 kids who wanted A's or B's got B's or C's? That'd be 30 phone calls to the teacher the next day, right? Raise your hand if you're a teacher and you have time for that. Right. So that's why there's no tricky stuff. They want you to learn this stuff. They're bending over backwards to help you learn this stuff. Just pay attention to what's going to be on the test. Condense it in a study guide. Put some pink on there if you want to. And then go quiz yourself with it. Yeah. Okay. So then what are you going to do? You're going to go to smithrivas.com/motivation and print these things. And then use them. There is a semester calendar version of this for college students, or for those people whose schools insist on doing trimesters. They're so different, they have to do trimesters, okay? There's no such thing as a trimester calendar, by the way. You can't fit it comfortably on one piece of paper. So really, they should outlaw trimesters, okay? Weekly schedule, quarter calendar, semester calendar, and then the to-do list. And you can print them there. They're available to print all the time. Okay, so that's one thing you can do. You can every Monday for the last 2 years, I have written one new thing on smithrivas.com/blog. So these are like study skills tips, college success tips, profiles of some of my favorite colleagues who do other stuff, psychologists, college counselors, tutoring people, that kind of thing. Book recommendations. So there's that. And I send the highlights of these things in the monthly newsletter. So you don't have to go here every week if you don't want to. You get an email once a month. It has the most interesting stuff. And then if you really want to get crazy, you can read This Book Will Not Be on the Test. We have some in the back. The book, I'll tell you, so if you didn't see it, there's a chapter on every kind of kid, right? So there's a chapter on every kind of kid. You look at the table of contents. If your kid isn't in there 5 times, I'll give you the book, okay? There's a chapter on every kind of kid. And then there are 5 chapters on super duper in-depth, foolproof explanations of the study skills things that we talked about: motivation, time management, reading, note-taking, tests, and papers. So all that's in there. And there's like a really scrunched version of these things. Don't use that. Ignore that. And let's pretend that's not there. It looks terrible. But print out the real ones, the life-size ones. The question was, how do you teach kids this stuff? Like, can you just make them do it, or do you try to cajole them into it? So first, if you were to call me, I would grill you on the phone to make sure it was going to work. So the kid and really I'm trying to find out, does the kid really want to do things differently? They have to want to do things differently. Not everyone comes to study skills when they're ready for it, right? And then how do you get them to do it? You ask them questions. You figure out what questions they need to be asked that will elicit the responses that you are trying to get out of them. So you use their own, whatever they have going on in their life, you use that against them to con them into arriving at the conclusion that study skills solves all problems. And you roll it out 1 hour per week for 6 weeks, and you talk about motivation the first week, and then time management, and then reading, and then note-taking, and then tests, and then papers, in that order. And you review each thing. Every time you do the next thing, you do a little bit of review of the past stuff. And you roll out every convincing example you can think of based on whatever weird thing the kid is into. And you do that with all your fingers and toes crossed, hoping it works. And then you give them a foolproof summary, super tidy, of everything you worked on with marching orders. Okay, here's what we did. This is what you said you wanted to do, right? You get them to say it. You can't make people do stuff, right? And for me personally, I'm not the teacher and I'm not the parents. And so that helps. Because then the kids know, you're not, you can't make me do anything. I go, you got that right? Right? In fact, I don't care if you do it or not. It's your life. We're just doing what you said you wanted, punk. Right? So that's something like that, right? So you get to be their consultant. Now, some parents have the luxury of being able to make their kids do stuff. But not everybody, right? So some parents, you can just make your kids do stuff. My mom certainly made me do everything she ever wanted me to do, right? But not everyone has that luxury, right? Some kids are immune to good advice, right? So then you have to pull it out of them and get them to say they want to do it. How do you convince your teenager that they're working distractedly and that the distractions are actually problematic? Well, you show them that fun experiment where they had kids try to learn stuff with their phones in sight and failed miserably, right? If you can see your phone, it's distracting, even if it's off and face down. If you can see it, it's distracting. So any homework done with the phone in view does not count. Not in my house, right? Any music is contraindicated. Music is contraindicated. Show them our boy Steve Chu's video. There's one on there that talks about how music does not go with schoolwork. Unless you have a doctor's note that says you are required to listen to music that is instrumental and familiar to you, then you're not allowed to use music while you do schoolwork. Whatever your friends want from you, you can satisfy for them to an even fuller degree if you do it when your homework is done. Whatever they want from you, you do a better job at it when you're done with your stuff, right? Let's see. What else? Well, so they have to have you have to first get them to think about here's the first question. If you could wave a magic wand and get A+ on everything, never having to do any work, what would you do with your extra time? And then you get them to make a list of things, and then that's where you start. So trying to make it emotionally safe for people to work without distraction. Because everyone thinks that their friends are going to dump them if they're not on MyFace while they're doing their work, right? But that's not the case. If anything, your friends will have missed you. The question is, how do you get people to do this stuff? We believe it works. Okay, fine, we're convinced. Yay. How do you get the kid to do it? Because you're asking them to do a bunch of stuff that they're not used to doing because some of this stuff is counterintuitive. So how do you get them to do it? Well, the counterintuitive part, you are exactly right. In fact, much of this is based on an article I read in Wired magazine when I started teaching study skills. The title of the article was, "Everything You Thought You Knew About Learning Is Wrong." So you're right. So yeah, it's counterintuitive, but the kids are hip to the fact that it's hard to do school without there being lots of inefficiency built in. Okay, kids know that it's impossible to run a school without massive amounts of inefficiency. And you acknowledge that. And you're like, hey, you do what at your school? Well, that's dumb. Well, I wonder if there's a reason, or I wonder if it's because that's how the county set it up, right? So first you acknowledge to the kid that, hey, you're going to do a bunch of stuff differently. You get the results immediately. The results from what happened? The results from one. Here's an example of a foolproof device, right? I mean, that was quick. The results from one weekend of review. You ask the kid, how long would it take you? You go through each of their classes. Okay, math. How long would it take you to stack up all your math that you did that week, flip through it, pick out the good stuff, and write it over here in a study guide? And they'll tell you somewhere between 5 and 60 minutes. You say, okay, fine. And you go through all the classes. And that's going to be somewhere between an hour and a half and 4 hours of work. And then you have them do it one weekend here. And then that next week, they're going to feel 100 times smarter than they've ever felt in their life because they've done something that not only they've never done before, but that no other kid in the room is doing. And they're going to go, whoa, that totally worked. I learned more in class. And then the thing is, the benefit of this, the payoff is much quicker than you might think, because when you're half a step ahead, when you're that on top of it, all this other painful after-school homework takes less time. So I think it's not as bad as you might think. Like you might think, oh, well, I have to review everything every weekend until I take the final. And like, well, okay, yeah, but things are going to get better right away because you're going to show up to class with a question and a comment. And then you're going to get to help somebody who had a stupid question, and that's going to make you feel good. And then if your comment, oh my gosh, you get to share your comments, and then someone says something else interesting, oh, well, now it's really fun, right? But mostly, if you know the material that well, then the homework takes less time. So part of the benefit of moving these couple, right now, no kid is doing these 4 hours on the weekend unless I made them. But they're doing 3 or 4 hours a night on a school night because they don't know this stuff and because they're working super distractedly. So I always start by asking the kid, how many hours of homework do you have in a day? How many days a week? Okay, how much on the weekend? And then they give you a number. And you know for a fact that every kid is working super distractedly. We already know that. So if you get them to stop doing that, it's going to go better. You get them to actually use the study skills, it's going to go better. And you get them to move some of the hours to the weekend mornings when their brain actually works, and it's going to go better. So there's a lot of ways that things could go better. Even just not doing the dumb stuff, things will go better. Yeah. Yeah, like really, truly, right? Like, so I start every new student with, okay, how many hours of work do you have? All right, you have 10 hours of work. Well, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, you're doing all that wrong. So if you were to do it my way, it would take you 7 hours. And now I'm going to ask you to do 2 hours of stuff on the weekend that you've never done before. Now we're up to 9 hours. And that's why I advertise better grades in less time. Right? Because this stuff is so obviously going to work. It's like, but if somebody really, truly doesn't want to hear it, then fine. Then, come back in 3 years, right? Because we can't make people do stuff, right? Like, they got to kind of see the benefit. But what I'm assuring you of is that the benefit is really fast because of the way school is run, right? Like, the structure of school is 1,000,000% predictable. You know it's going to be on that silly test. So the question is, what about the kid whose heart is in the right place but finds it painfully impossible to do the time management things that we're suggesting? That's a really good question because so in the book there's a chapter on procrastinators. And is yours a procrastinator, or is it more like I just can't face anything? Is it just more doing nothing?
This is a few kids I teach, not my personal.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so if people are putting stuff off, it's the real simple reason that they're putting it off is that they don't know how to do it in a way that's not going to be painful. So they just don't know. They just don't know how to do stuff. Like sometimes people will tell me they know how to make a study guide, and then they won't do it for 3 weeks, and that's fine, but that's why we do the study guide piece in week 5, right? So the thing is, almost nobody is a real deal procrastinator. Like I'm talking like that's like 1 in 100. That's like that person. Anybody who is still procrastinating after you teach them this stuff is probably depressed, and that's a different problem, right? Like I am convinced, having had so many students at so many high-pressure schools, I'm convinced that if you're not doing it, it's because you don't know how. And once you know how, if you're still not doing it, it's because you have other things going on that are much bigger problems than your grades, right? So, I get tons of students that no one else has been able to help. That won't work for me. Nothing works for my kid. Okay, I think it's a matter of how it's presented. Like some schools, schools maybe might try to teach study skills. Certain schools might try to do that. But it doesn't work because the kid just lumps it in with everything else about school. Right? So it's got to be kind of like sufficiently different from what has come before it, right? Like this. Like this does not sound like school, right? I clearly don't sound like a teacher. And I don't love the kid like I love Barry the study dog, and that's why it works, right? So no one's going to be able to do everything super way better than they were doing it anytime soon. So you got to start small. Like pick one thing to do better. Like, okay, let's review, like maybe you start with like reviewing half your classes this weekend and the other half next weekend. Maybe you start by, okay, well today, you just kind of like you start small and you add in a new thing like every week, right? Okay, well today let's just practice eating a protein-filled snack when we get home before we start the work and not eating sugar that's going to make us dumber, right? So a real deal procrastinator is exceedingly rare. In 9 years of teaching study skills, I've seen 2 people who I was like, oh my God, you're the real thing. You will just not, you're like to the point of self-sabotage. And those people were depressed or worse, right? Like mostly people aren't doing it because no one has presented it to them convincingly. And they haven't seen the results quick enough to get on board. So the question was, what about like if the goal is to have all the boxes filled, what do you do when the unforeseen arises? The goal is not to have all the boxes filled. You have to have enough empty space in case you step in dog poop, right? I lived in Argentina 2 years. You step in dog poop weekly, okay? That's a 20-minute delay every time, right? Every time. You have to have enough wiggle room in case something unforeseen happens. You have to have so here's a great example. Think of what time the kid goes to bed. I want every kid to stop work at least an hour before they go to bed. At least. There's nothing you can do within an hour of bedtime that is going to improve your academic circumstances. You're just fooling yourself. You're tired. You're not really learning it. In fact, you're making yourself dumber because you're working so much harder and taking longer and thinking you're doing it, but really you're not. So no, there has to be enough. So we start with sleep, and then we limit the homework to 14 hours. And if there is not enough empty slots on the schedule, then that's how you know the kid is doing too much stuff. And there are kids like that. And around here, I dare say there's more than nationwide, right? So there's got to be free time. Like you have to have, I'd like to have 15 minutes after, if you have to do more work after dinner. Like, okay, maybe you want to take 15 minutes after dinner, but you don't want to take 30 probably. But if you find that you're working right up till bedtime, then you're doing too much stuff, right? And what is the reason that the kid is doing too much stuff? Well, hopefully it's because the kid is full of fun ideas and a little bit delusional. That'd be the best case scenario. Worst case scenario would be the parents are making them do too much stuff. All those things happen, right? So yeah, it shouldn't be jam-packed. Jam-packed, like I get nervous when I see jam-packed schedules, and I've had quite a few kids like that, and I say, you have no room in here for here's the reason that you want to get this stuff. We're trying to minimize after dinner homework because after dinner is when the fun stuff happens, right? Like the baseball playoffs, okay? A bunch of people had a whole bunch of more baseball games they had to go to now, right? Like during a week when they thought they were going to have plenty of time to do homework. Now you have to go to all these games, right? So in order to be available to go to the game and enjoy it, you have to be half a step ahead. So we're trying to be half a step ahead because there's no such thing as academic comebacks. If you're not half a step ahead, you're drowning, right? No one ever recovered from an academic slide. No, it just gets worse and then they kick you out. Right? We need wiggle room. That's super duper important. The question is how do you get somebody who just can't self-regulate and they can't stop themselves to change tasks at a given hour? So that's like the essence of ADHD, right? So that's why I think it's super important for the parents and the student to be on the same page, right? You have to know exactly what it's supposed to look like. The kid has to know exactly what it's supposed to look like. And you both have to remember that this is going to be a million times harder for the kid than you or they would like it to be, right? And you have to remember that it's not fair to expect everyone to solve their problems, in 6 weeks, and that this might take years, right? But I'll promise you that there is no better way of doing school than this way that's driven by the science of learning and the vagaries of DC traffic and the school bus schedule, right? All you can do is aim at what you know to be the best and inch yourself toward it until you're at a point where it's no longer so painful. You want like removing distractions helps. Timers help. Timers that are not on the phone, right? Timer on a little tiny clock, like a $10 clock with a buzzer. Rules, like rules in the house about no this or that. I mean, I don't tell people what rules to set, but I could tell you some of the rules that parents have told me they set, and oh man, parents have no trouble thinking up rules. The hard part's enforcing them, right? But if it's painful for everybody, then the buy-in will come sooner. But nobody's suggesting that the only way for it to go better would be to practice these things relentlessly, right? So if we're going to do that, we just want to make sure we're practicing the right stuff. The question is like, what about younger kids who might need more sleep? Yeah, I always ask as a kid, how much sleep do you like to get? And then you got to kind of like hip the people who think they're getting away with 7.5 that they're not. Yeah. I mean, when I was elementary schooler, I went to bed at 7:30. I grew up in California and never saw a Laker game in my life till I went to college because I had to go to bed at 7:30. I mean, that's like, what is that? That was oppressive, right? So maybe not 7:30, but yeah, lots of sleep. So there's a comment like that you're happy to hear that it's not a quick fix for everybody. You said there's not a lot of stuff on your kids' calendar because they're not out having a fun time all the time. And because of that, the homework tends to take as long as they physically have to do it. Right. So that's where I would bust out a really big timer and be like, oh, you think that's going to take you 2 hours? Like math for one night? Come on. Like, I bet you $1 doesn't take 2 hours or something like that, right? And you time it. That's what the to-do list is for, which you can't see very well on here. But yeah, like so. And then so that's a big. Okay, so you're citing social anxiety, but there's a really good parallel with college students, none of whom have enough to do. Okay, college students have no schoolwork to do, and they do even less of it. Okay, they have all the time in the world, and that's why they get into trouble, right? Free time is your worst enemy in college. And when you have all the time in the world, you always have more time to do this thing. You can always put it off until it's super painful. And if you're a good boy, then you're gonna do it, even though it's painful because you're a good boy. But right? So more stuff on the calendar can actually be like a big impetus to get things done more quickly, and not just more chores, but like. Fun stuff. And, what's fun? Well, I don't know. You have to try some stuff out, and it might not be fun, right? And don't be afraid to chuck it if it's not, and try a new thing, right? So more stuff on the calendar, like more restrictions, like don't let people do homework. No, you're not allowed to do homework after 8 p.m. You're not allowed. You're going to get, okay, so I'm getting C's and D's. Well, tough. Get the work done earlier, right? I mean, if it's because what's going to be more painful ultimately, like the grades or the lack of life skills. So the question is like, what do you do with somebody who made it to college without study skills and then got into an academic tight spot in the first semester? Well, first thing you do is, you join the Facebook group for the 500 million people in that position, okay? Nobody shows up at college with study skills unless someone beat it into them, right? Nobody's got study skills. Everybody's on academic probation after the first semester. That's like so insanely common. It's common, right? Now, the good news is that your kid is doing everything completely wrong. So and they got X grades. So to stop doing the dumb stuff, they'll be off probation. Start doing the good stuff, and then, oh my gosh, then you're threatening to get some A's, right? So it's an easy fix. You get them to. It doesn't feel good to be on academic probation. But the people I've seen who are okay with it are the people who know that their future is so secure financially that's not really going to matter if they get kicked out of this college or even the next college.
Well, that's not the case.
Okay, so then it's easy to fix. Then it's easy to fix, right? Teach the kid the study skills. Everything they need, word for word, it's in the book. That's the same stuff I teach people when I go around teaching people one-on-one. It is in the book, word for word. It's the same stuff. Read the book, do what it says. Let me know how great your life turns out. Right? So this is an easy fix. That's like so common. That's like scoop of chocolate, scoop of vanilla. You know that one? City Slickers? Okay. If you have any more questions, ask them to me in the back. Thank you, everybody.